Season 5 Reloaded's update ended up introducing us to a new weapon, the Finn LMG, and it's a beast of a gun, but after a week now of playing around with it, after maxing it out, playing with multiple builds, in MP and in Warzone, did Infinity Ward make a mistake with this weapon? Did they hand us a Bruin 2.0? We all remember how bad that Bruin-only meta in Warzone and even MP was, not just even a few weeks ago, but does this follow up or maybe even exceed the power of the Bruin? Today I want to talk to you about the Finn LMG, the practicality of the weapon, where it ranks among other meta LMGs, and an overall feel for it if you haven't ranked it up or tried it out for yourselves just yet. That said, as we go along, let me know your thoughts down below. Do you think the Finn is nuts, a little too OP, a little underpowered, or just right? As well, if you are new to the channel, do be sure to hit the subscribe button and stay up to date with all things Modern Warfare, Warzone, and of course Black Ops Cold War content as we roll into that transition coming in just a few months between games. But anyways, let's jump into it. If you haven't known, haven't checked, or just haven't played around with it, the Finn was introduced last week in two different capacities. One, in-game organically via in-game challenges, or two, by purchase of the mainframe bundle in which it came with a blueprint for that weapon. The challenge itself may actually be the easiest one that we've had for a weapon just yet. It only tasked with getting a melee kill with an LMG in 7 different matches, and this can be done in no joke, 10 minutes or less. What you need to do is put on an LMG, any really, kit it out for mobility, but make sure you have that breacher device on the muzzle attachment, because this will allow you to one-hit melee players, whereas instead of having to double hit them, you can just bash their face in, move on to the next one, instead of having to be stealthy and sneak up behind somebody or something like that. These challenges can be completed without completing the game or match overall, so that means that you can do it, check to see if it counted, then back out, re-queue, and do it all over again. And like we mentioned, this takes max of 10 minutes, especially when playlists like Shoot the Ship are around. Those are huge helps. But if you end up buying the Finn out of the shop, it comes along with a blueprint that includes the compensator, the XRK long shot barrel, the tac laser, the XRK chainsaw stock, and the 5.56 NATO 100 round belt. However, if you did buy this from the store, if you have plans to buy it from the store, you will have immediate access to the build, but that build alone. You can still use it to rank up the weapon, but you won't be able to access the gunsmith and custom tailor that build of the weapon to your liking until you actually unlock the weapon. Bit of a bummer, but also something you should be totally conscious of if you do want to get it that way. But when you rank this thing up, it becomes a behemoth of a weapon. You'll start to gain access to things like the monolithic suppressor, the adverse barrels, the ammunition modifications, and it becomes something that can be a usable weapon rather fast. And if you took advantage of this immediately, you may have noticed that there was double XP active, so that was a huge time saver. Double weapon XP and Shoot the Ship, dude, that's a combo that you can't beat if you tried. But once you rank it up, you can start to build it out like my preferred loadout, the monolithic suppressor, the XRK long shot adverse barrel, the VLK 3x optic, the commando foregrip, the 5.56 NATO 100 round belts. Admittedly though, I have played around with the tac laser in place of the VLK. I've also played around with sleight of hand in place of the VLK, at least on the firewall blueprint. I actually don't mind the iron sights and in fact kind of like them. So you of course have wiggle room as you always do with weapon builds, but the monolithic suppressor keeps you off that radar. The VLK adds a bit more precision and recoil stabilization. The commando foregrip aids in aiming stability and stabilization. The NATO 5.56 rounds offer up some firepower that doesn't hurt your bullet potential, and then the big one, the XRK long shot adverse barrel. The adverse barrels all add fire rate to your weapon, making it an absolute bullet hose. Now, with a long shot barrel, it's treated like any of the other longer barrels on any other weapon. It adds that damage range and that bullet velocity, and then ups that output of rounds as well. So you're beaming fools left, right, and center. The problem though arises when you consider that this hurts the movement speed, but also the recoil control. Because you have a weapon that's one step away from a chain gun, naturally that stabilization is already going to be rough. But at a distance, where pinpoint precision is absolutely necessary, that becomes few and far in between, and it's going to be something that at a distance, you're not really going to want this for a lot of those engagements. And this is where we can start to really find a sort of grade for the Finn, where it flourishes and where it's just okay and where it's bad. Up close and personal, you can't beat it. It's the Fennec of the LMG class. You can absolutely shred through anyone that comes close to you, or even mid-range, you'll have some great success. But at a distance, that's where you're going to have a bigger problem. If I were to play with the Finn in, say, Warzone, which is primarily where I play. I know a lot of people still are playing traditional MP. Myself, I've just been having a lot of fun in Warzone as opposed to there. But for Warzone in particular, you'll see again a lot of those longer range engagements. Honestly, I think the Finn is probably best suited with, say, a Kar 98K, maybe a sniper in the back as a secondary weapon as well. You absolutely can run the Finn and an SMG to go super all out and super aggressive. I've done that quite a bit of times. And of course, even some of the gameplay you'll see in the background is from those games where I've gone Fin and SMG. But if I'm thinking about the practicality of it, I definitely think that you use that Fin as that close quarters, that medium range weapon, but also then try and take engagements, say with an AX50 or an HDR, maybe a Car 98K, in which if you're feeling good on that shot and you can hit those headies, you're gonna be able to take those gunfights at a distance, but you're not gonna be able to have the same extreme range as, say, a Grau, say even the Bruin pre-patch, and somewhat still to an extent post-patch. The Fin is fantastic, but there also, of course, again, in that other LMG category, are other attributes that just don't shine as number one as well as other weapons do. For example, the Bruin is a weapon that is still very meta, still a weapon that a lot of players will use, but maybe not as much as just, say, 2-3 weeks ago. Overall, the Bruin is lightweight. That 60-round magazine in Warzone is incredible because it gives you that assault rifle mobility, but with the damage output of an LMG. Then you end up kitting it out again for more agility, more movement potential, and you got a weapon that's all around just a great mobile damage output hose. That's fantastic. The Fin is very much so like that, except the fact that the reload is abysmal compared to the Bruin. You just pop out that 60-round mag, put in a new one, you're good to go. Instead, on the Fin, you have to change out that belt, and it's not too pretty. It takes quite a bit of time, and if you're in a pinch situation, you can almost guarantee you're going to lose those gunfights, even if you can pop up and take one down with you. Another weapon that's super meta right now is that of the PKM, because the Bruin and the PKM were the top two LMGs before the Fin came around, and with the Bruin having that impending nerf that could absolutely murder the weapon, players immediately jumped to the PKM, and rightfully so. It's a great weapon. That damage output can't be beaten, but the mobility is definitely better on, say, the Fin, on the Bruin. So the PKM in that regard falls a little short. Same thing goes for that reload, that ability to pull that weapon out if you don't have amped, or if you just have it kind of a clunky build to begin with. So when you take a look at the Fin overall comparative to the LMG class, that's something that I think it thrives in some situations where others do not, but also is a hindrance in some areas where it's not as good. That damage output, relatively standard. That rate of fire, best in class if you choose that adverse barrel for sure. The reload speed, abysmal. Mobility, middle of the pack compared to the Bruin and the PKM. Long distance shooting, Bruin definitely I still think has the leg up just slightly there with that and the control that it affords. It's right around on par with the PKM, even with that adverse barrel on it, though probably a better match if you use a different barrel other than the adverse barrel, but it's definitely a weapon that again is very much so situational compared to the other LMG uses. The one thing though that I do love about the Fin is that these new barrels introduced with the adverse effects, increasing that rate of fire. Yes, it allows you to shred up close and personal, and again it kind of hinders you at a longer range, but it offers up a lot more variability in how you want to play with this LMG. You can absolutely kit it out with the traditional barrels and make it so you don't have that up rate of fire, to which at that point you're kind of on par with basically all the other LMGs in that sense. It doesn't really distinguish itself too much, but it's still a powerhouse at that point and offers a little bit more control at a distance. So then you can absolutely run, say, an MP5 and use the LMG, even trying to cover that long range, but it really comes down to how you want to play with it, and that I think is perhaps the coolest part about this weapon. Overall, did Infinity Ward break Warzone, break MP here with this? Maybe I'm missing out on it. Maybe I'm just experiencing different games in different lobbies than you. But to me, I think that at the very beginning, everybody wanted to try it out. They thought, okay, this is incredibly powerful. But it is something that now that a little bit of time has gone by, I feel like the last couple of days haven't really been as overrun by the Fin as much as those first couple of days, where players are starting to realize, okay, yeah, it's good, but it does have some drawbacks that I kind of want to go back to some other weapons I feel more comfortable with. And that I think is something that has happened with every single weapon. Things like the AN94, that is a fantastic weapon, sure, but I remember at the very beginning, people are like, okay, the AN94 is going to be the next meta weapon. And now you see it maybe once or twice here and there, but it's not anything that is up there with even, say, the Grau, which has gone through the ringer of different nerfs and buffs. Or, say, the Bruin, which is, of course, had recent adjustments to it, but isn't necessarily that main meta weapon anymore. So, of course, it may vary depending on player, but I think it was a nice introduction here that offers up gameplay styles that can be powerhouses if you end up kitting it out properly and you play it smart. But at the end of the day, I think it comes down to what type of player you are, and I even recommend other weapons over top of it. But that's, I think, where we're at here at this. I wanted to talk with you guys casually about the Finn in Warzone in MP, and I'd love to get your thoughts and feedback down there in the comments. But that said, hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to drop a like down below, and of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure you guys subscribe so you don't miss a single thing regarding all things Modern Warfare, Warzone, and of course, Black Ops Cold War as we round into a bunch of stuff here coming up. We, of course, have that multiplayer reveal happening as of next week even, which is crazy to think it's already coming up that quick. We got other stuff up on deck here as we go along as well. So stick it here if you're interested in any of those three main topics. We'll keep you covered with anything you need to know. If you also want to follow me over on Twitter and Instagram, those are the best places to get content on YouTube. I can live on both those. If you guys want to strike up a conversation, ask me a question, whatever it may be, that link is down there in the description below. That said, thanks so much for watching. My name is Espresso. I'll see you guys later. Take care and peace.